Sucks. Sucks. Morning, Zux.
Hi, Bob.
How are you?
Fine, thanks. And yourself?
Very well, thank you. I see we are all in this work from home vibe.
Yeah.
Good. No.
Are you working from home?
Yes, I'm at home. Been at home for probably throughout the what's this thing?
Since March.
Yeah. So yeah, no, thank you, man, for coming through. I saw a message last week. I don't know whether it was on WhatsApp or let me pause this recording. The idea behind it is more along the lines of presenting just an extra avenue for young people, call it, to look up to certain individuals who perhaps they may not exactly know from the spaces that they're at, but who are doing the things that they would like to do. It's basically to say that there are people who've been through where you are, who are have reached the points that you're still looking at from where you are, but perhaps maybe thinking that no, they're too far to reach or they're too difficult to do. Even if that is the case, it's just to say that if another human being has done it, perhaps also it's right that you aspire to get to that level as well. And it's also from the interactions that we've had, just listening to you over the years and hearing how you perhaps process your thoughts and how you've done your life to this point. Is just to also to say thank you very much for the inspiration, but more over and above that as well is also to say someone else can probably gain as much inspiration as I too have gained from just watching you.
Okay.
Cool. So we've got some questions.
I mean,
yes, man.
No, you can go ahead.
Cool. No, I was going to say then we've got some questions, of course, that we had put through as an idea of facilitating this this conversation. And having mentioned the things that I've mentioned, perhaps it's worth also adding that from watching you and listening and hearing you do certain things or speak about certain things, you've always come across as somebody who is very sure of their opinion. I know to someone else that might sound like you are stubborn, but for me, it's more along the lines of conviction. You seem to have that conviction whenever you express certain opinions. So it's more along the lines of now getting to understand what informs that kind of an attitude. And I would think to some extent, some parts of it are deliberate, some are probably just your character. Just to unpack that a bit so that we can best understand who Zooks is. We will, of course, put out a bio in terms of detailing to some extent who you are and perhaps some of the spaces that you operate in, just so people can get to familiarize themselves with that. Hence, I do not going into that deep an introduction right now. But one of the questions that we wanted to put through was along the lines of what sort of principles do you base your life on? If you can perhaps just take us through probably say the top three or three of them, perhaps from your side.
Sure. No, thanks, Bonga. I'm sure. I mean, as we talk, you'll probably realize some of the stuff is that generally I do come across like as a closed person up until you come into my circle, and then when we close, then you'd sort of start to learn more about, and then I'll start to share more about myself normally. So, I mean, you can probably track back in our interaction or how we came to be. Before we worked closely together, you probably saw me from a distance and didn't know much about me. And then up until we worked together, and then you start to do that. So, I mean, what do I base my life on? So I mean, I don't want to go, we will probably get to the personal stuff at some point later. So what I base my life on is that, you know, when I try something or when I start something, I must finish it. Failure is not an option. I need to see something through. Now, there will be challenges in between and all of that. I'm not saying that is failure. I'm saying basically quitting on failing and throwing in the towel is not an option. Hence, I would take it quite hard to actually saying, is this something that I want to do? And if the answer is yes, I've thoroughly explored all the avenues and I said, okay, I'm in the starting lineup now. I'm going to do this. Once I'm there, I have to finish it. Would there be a change of mind? Yes, sometimes you'd have change of mind in between. So failure is not an option for me. Once you start something, you have to see it through. And that comes, I mean, that comes from probably from my upbringing, where, you know, with a background with my parents, where they would always ensure that, you know, when you've committed to something, you see it through. You can't promise and don't deliver. If you've promised something, you must see it through and deliver it. And that's maybe like some of the things that you sort of take as a kid or you hear all the time and it annoys you, but you don't actually notice that it's actually sticking with you. And as you grow older, you see that. And obviously, I think what makes me to be where, or me in the character and sense is also like family. In terms of my close relationships with family, I do not have a big circle of friends. Based on my character or nature, it's a lot of effort to invest in relationships. I'd rather have. I mean, there are people who are outspoken and easy to get relationships going, and that's their character. I'm like this. I have few relationships with a few people, and that's people that I'm able to actually keep contact with. Sure, if I think about it now, it's like 10, 15 years. So there's like people that I still talk to that we were in high school together and we're in a journey together. And there's obviously some that you've lost along the way, especially like, for example, keep key relationships with like close people and family quite important, because I actually do think that is important for someone. And it sort of opens up in a nice comfort zone for you to be able to say, okay, I don't like that, or what you said didn't feel or sit well with me. So family is important, and I think, I mean, most of well, one of my other traits is like being upfront and honest with somebody. So I mean, it's like from, it doesn't matter who it is, from, like I say, family members, friends, colleagues, bosses, or whatever, being honest and be upfront in all sorts of forms. Like I said, is that I'm a person that sees things through. If you ask me something and I realistically don't think it's possible, I tell you upfront. Now you might have a different opinion that, yes, push it anyways. And then I'm going to say, I will do as you ask, but please bear in mind that I don't think so. That's my honest. I don't think it's possible unless this. So I'm not going to say it's impossible to do something, so don't try it. Oh, I'll say it's impossible because of these reasons, because of the X, Y, and Z. If you solve X, Y, and Z, it makes it easier. It makes it more possible. And and I believe like when you do that up front and you come with those challenges, then people are more acceptive, because they said, okay, this guy thought about this and he warned us that these things might happen. If we didn't resolve them, now they're happening. Okay, let's resolve them, type of a thing. So I always put honesty up front, because that sets up any relationship or conversation onto, like, make it start on a right slate. And and I think that has helped me from a personal point of view. It has helped me from a work point of view, and I think those are probably the main things that I sort of try and keep in my life. There's more, but yeah, those are the main things.
Cool. Thank you, man. Thank you, Zix. I like the one of starting things, particularly, and finishing them and seeing them through, because we live in a time of social media now where things are popping up every other day, every other week. And if you are indeed that person who's going to be just joining in with every new craze without having processed, because that's what it gives me, that you actually push it all the way to see if it gets to the end, if you can get to that point. So if you just somebody who just starts things and then it just continues being that pattern, then chances are that you're not going to finish much of the things that you start. So thank you for that. The other part that I suppose now, particularly people, I'm going to speak about me, people in my age group who are trying to, you're trying to build a career on one side, you're trying to build a family on the other. I know these things may not be as separate in the times that we're in, given the working from home and all that. But what I wanted to get to understand from your perspective is, how do you manage yourself in relation to the work that you must do, that is work responsibilities and home responsibilities? Like, how do you go about separating, if there's even a separation? Other people actually view that as one thing, just a continuation of your life. So how do you personally go about piecing that out? Other people will refer to it as work-life balance, but whichever term you use, that's what we're trying to get to understand.
Yeah. So, I mean, that part is actually very difficult, and I must first say, I'm not that much older than you, maybe a couple of years here
Yeah,
and
I
there.
know.
I'm joking. No, I'm old. So this word work-life balance and stuff. When you start your career out and you come out of, of university, you've got certain perceptions in terms of what work is and how your life is going to be. And very soon you learn that that is actually not gonna happen. And it's sad and difficult in a way because you do not want to come across as a person who's not committed to their work and their deliverables. And neither do you want, well, it depends. So some people who value both sides, they don't want to sacrifice too much of the family time and the friendships and the relationships also. So if you're in that predicament where you're saying that you want to have a family and you want to have a career, I think one has to be really honest with themselves in terms of what career path have you chosen, up until what point in that career path you think it's possible to be able to do both. And this is something that I never thought about it much, say the first 3 years of my career. And then as you transition, I'm like, I do want to have a family, but I mean, if you want to have a family, do I want to be an absent parent in the sense that I work from whatever time to whatever time? And one can relate it, say, for example, to our parents. My parents don't have a formal education. My dad was a laborer. He wakes up at like 5:30 to go to work, and he comes back at 6 o'clock, and at 8 o'clock he's in bed because that's physical labor and stuff. And that was the way of providing. And he was there for the time that you see him for the 2 hours. Um, but it's like when you look back to that, it's like, yes, I spent time with him, but it was actually limited time because of circumstances and all of that. Now you think to yourself, now you're able to work and choose which company you want to work for because of your skill levels and all of that. And even with that, it comes to saying, like, for example, immediately, I think that probably by the time I left articles, then I said, okay, if you're going to follow this path, at what point, if you join whatever company, do you want to stop? Then you look around and then you start seeing, like, for example, especially back then, and you start seeing, like, say, let's start right at the top, the CEO of a company. If you look at CEO of a company, and then the pictures or the messages you were getting was that these people work from when they wake up to when they go to bed. And does one do that? Okay. Do they have kids? Yes, some of them have kids. Where do they go to school? Boarding school. What does the wife do, or what does the husband do, as an example? Maybe they've decided collectively that the one parent is going to stay. So there's different avenues. But personally, I chose the following. My path was that I'm going to work. I will have a family. I don't think I'm going to try and climb the corporate ladder to the highest and the top, because the paycheck that comes with it comes with time sacrifices as well. So that's not. I'm not saying somebody else who can do both cannot do it. I said that's not for me. I said, like, I mean, if you look at the finance career, you're still going to be demanded a lot of time, even if you at a level of like a senior management position. They still require a lot of your time. But in my family, I hoped at the time, or I wished for, me working, my wife working, and we would both work. We would have a family. The premise around it was that obviously you can do plannings and all of that. Is that I wanted somebody who is independent to grow a family together. If something were to happen to me, nothing has to change drastically in the family life, because the person is able to continue to work. I'm not saying that you can't provide for such. I mean, you can take out a huge life policy if one of the partners decided not to work. That can be the cover and stuff. I just wanted that because, and also, if I wanted somebody independent who was able to work, it would have meant that I'm not going to change much in terms of that person's career, because you also want your marriage to work. So once someone else's role changes too much because you sort of insisting on it, other than being it coming from the person, that might cause challenges too. So from my side is that we both decide, my wife and I will both decide, yes, we'll have a family. We're not going to be family because we don't think we would be able to have time, say for example, for 5 kids or whatever, but have a managed family that we can look after, so that we spend enough time with the kids. And even with that said, Bongo, realistically, I mean, my kids are at school today. Um, you don't see your kids for like 8 hours Monday to Friday. And in any given weekday, you see them for 3 hours maybe. And in that 3 hours, it's all about routine of food and getting them to bed and stuff. It's not actually time spent sharing moments with them. So for us, as like I said, not a big circle of friends. So when it comes to downtime or in the evening, is that it's family first. When you're young, before you get there, you're allowed to be selfish, to do whatever you want to do. But when I get home at 6 o'clock, I don't have a choice. It's family first.
Yeah.
Whatever comes after, it will be after. And I think if you communicate that across to people, people will learn and they'll understand and they'll adjust to it. Because if my boss calls me at home, which we call at supper time, and then he'll be like, "Are you able to talk?" I'm like, "No, I'm actually feeding the kids." That's honesty, because he's gonna hear the noise in the background, and then he can either say, "Okay, fine, you can call me back when you're done," as an example. So we try to separate the time like that. There are times in the year where it's difficult to do that. Weekend times is that family time. Holiday time, it's family time. My kids are still young. They want you around them all the time. And obviously, as they grow older, they might become more independent. They might be able to do certain things by themselves. They want to be with their friends. And then you sort of adjust as you go along. But like I said, is that you have to be consciously saying, okay, this is the time that I set for family, and that's what I'm going to do. After they've fallen asleep or whatever the case is, and then you go back to that urgent matter if there was an urgent matter that needed to be addressed. But it's still difficult to do, but that's how I go about it. Even my personal hobbies have sort of will take like a back step, because it's going to be work, family, then your personal stuff comes after that. And that's what you have to accept. I think like young people, maybe sometimes you see these perfect family lives and people, that's what raising a family is going to be. You have to sacrifice yourself to some point. You were selfish enough to want it. Now you must actually have. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if you as a person, it's being selfish. You say you want to have a family, you want to have kids. Now, once you have it, you have to be able to accept the sacrifice for I mean, I got what I wanted. To make it work, now I need to sacrifice a piece of myself because I was selfish. So those are the things that you can. And I mean, we chose not to get outside help in the forms of like nanny and all of that. So our kids go to school. When they come back to us. We have to look after them. You have the options. You have the options of having a nanny. You have an option of maybe a family member helping you. Those are different avenues or options that people can. But what I would stress is that if you as the person want to have a family, and you as a person want to build a nice relationship with your family, then you need to put that time in. You can't defer it to someone else or some like we already defer most of it to school. Now, the little time that's left, if you keep on deferring it to someone else, when your kids grow out and they're out of your house, you're gonna feel like I should have spent more time maybe with them. And by that time, they're old and they're like, no, Dad, I need to be independent,
It's too late.
But yeah, so you have to put family first. And I've also sort of learned from people who are much older than me, who had older kids in university and so forth, where they give you the directive. They're saying the time flies by so quickly that you don't want to miss it at the beginning. Because by the time, I mean, look at us now. I don't need my parents around because I have my own family I'm doing in my life. There's going to come a stage with your family as well where they don't need you as much anymore. And therefore, in that time, you can't get that time back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Zux. I'm talking about personal stuff. I know you are an avid runner. I must say that you are amongst the people. I don't really like running to that extent, but you're one of the individuals who have given me the edge to add the little bit of running that I do from now and again. So hopefully you'll get back onto that
Uh,
as time goes on.
yeah. But I didn't force you to say you must take up running.
No,
My
no.
point of view to people, I always say to people, find something that you like that is not going to feel like a burden to do.
Mhm.
If it is walking, walk. If it's swimming, swim. If it's golf, golf. Whatever it is that you like, that's not going to
No,
feel
no,
like a burden when you have to.
you certainly didn't force it. It's just one of those things that is much easier to do in the sense that you do not involve a lot of people. You don't need people to cooperate so many, like on so many levels for it to happen. For instance, like playing a team sport. It's just one of those things you want to do. You get on the road and you go through it. So that's the part of this. That's the part for me that is appealing. I know I put it out there very negatively, but actually do see the benefit. Let's put it that way. Even beyond the enjoyment, I see the benefit. Mhm. Perhaps now to kind of close it off in a way, just projecting to the future in a way, what sort of skills would you feel someone who is starting out in their career, or even somebody who is at a point where, say, they've spent 5 to 10 years in their career, should they be looking to pick up? And I know this is really as open-ended as any question can be, because there's so many careers and so many requirements that go through or go with each. But from your perspective, what are some of the things that you would regard as skills that someone should be looking to take up in order to kind of better secure their future in a way?
Yeah, so this one, I mean, the answer when I went through the questions in the guide, I was like, there's probably it falls within this one set of skills, if you want to put it like that. If you look to where we are now, look where we're coming from, and look at what people are saying we're probably going to. I think the one most important skill set for any person is adaptability or flexibility or learning. Because I'll put it like this, is that we're working from home now. If you were a difficult person to try and grasp new challenges and try and adapt to them, it would have been a painful exercise for you to try and get away from the day-to-day of driving to work and seeing people and now being sitting in an office and looking at a screen and working. We had to adapt to that. Now, I mean, as an individual, that's difficult. As a manager who probably likes to see people or micromanage, I can imagine how incredibly difficult that was. So that's the one skill that I've actually. Sorry?
I'm saying you probably are calling them every 15 minutes.
Yes. Exactly. And it's not good for your health as well. So the one thing that I've learned is over the time, I see is adaptability in terms of, you know, the way we do things as human beings and the way we like to do things is that things change over time. Okay. And I mean, people talk about, from the 1900s, the Industrial Revolution to where we are now. If you think about it, if you didn't want to change and adapt whenever there was a change set in terms of how things were going, what was going to happen is that you're going to fall back and you're going to be basically at the back of the line and not transition to how things are being done or going to now. And that goes throughout all industries, sectors, because even a farmer, how you used to farm in 1900 versus when the tractors and everything came, it's different. So you have to adapt to that thing. There's a huge learning curve, there's a cost to it, etc. So from a personal or from a human being point of view, that you need to adapt to learn the new skills that might be needed. Now you hear a lot of talk these days to saying that, well, because we in this technological age and so forth, the classic things of what are they called, geography and history, they're not as important anymore because everybody can just look it up on a computer, etc. Therefore, kids need to be taught how to code, etc. So those are the things that I would say me as an individual I have to take into account. See, and you must not put your head down and see, okay, fine, am I replaceable by technology? If the answer is yes, when I do get placed, what opportunities are available for me to be able to transition into? And that's what you should actually open up your mind to as a person. You can't get stuck to saying, I worked so hard to get this degree for how many years. I want to keep on doing it like this. Unfortunately, I mean, you have to move on. So that's what I would say. And one thing that I would say to anyone, whether you're starting out your career, whether you deep into your career, and most industries or people they don't want to say these things like this because then you have to invest a little bit more time in it. If you've gone through to school and you've learned your degree and so forth, it just shows that there is a certain level of you being able to gather knowledge and being able to process it and utilize it in the right way. Okay. That's a skill set. Now, if I took that person out, say for example, I know it's a silly example, if you took that person out from a finance point of view and you put them in an IT environment and you teach them and they're willing to learn the IT language and so forth, I don't see how that person will not be able to learn. But it's something that is a skill that you aspire to and you're willing to do. Because if you're not willing to do something, you're going to put less effort into it. And when you put less effort into it, you're not going to succeed. And then people are going to say, you see, we told you it doesn't work. You can't take a finance person into an IT person and teach them
Knew
anymore.
it.
Forgetting there's an underlying consequence. So that's my belief to saying that if you're starting out your career now, you must be prepared to learn new things and you must be prepared. You must find out what new things are out there, which ones interest you the most and you're willing to do, and be prepared to learn them and apply yourself to them. And I mean, I'm saying I'm old, but I'm not that old to learn new things. I mean, when I was in varsity, I saw still people still learning. So you can always learn throughout life and just be open-minded to learn and be open-minded to adapt to new environments all times. And we saying, look, I mean, nobody can predict the future. Nobody even knows what next week is going to look like. But you can say when it comes, whatever it is that I need to know, I know where to go find out, and I know how to interpret it once I found out. And that's the biggest skill. Rather than say, for example, know the medical industry is the way of the future, where they're saying they can develop robots to do surgeries and so forth. Then what? Then what? Or saying that law is the way of the future. I don't think we're gonna have. I'm not saying we're not going to have, but I don't think we might keep those things in this current structure as we have them, meaning that whoever is sitting in that structure must be willing and able to actually change. Yeah.
Cool. No, thank you very much, Sux. I enjoyed that you are the one who was speaking here more than I was, because that is the whole idea. It's to get to understand some of your thinking style or your thinking style and some of the ideas that make you the person that you are. And I certainly can concur for people who do not know you, that the way you are speaking now and the way you've been speaking in terms of the motivations that you've got and some of the views that you share, there is a consistency there. So you've not changed just for this few minutes that we are talking about here today. So thank you very much for your time. I think let's cap it here. This is now going to be off the record. By that, I mean, it won't be on the video. What I will do is then at the beginning, I will do an introduction there. Then we will switch on to these minutes where we've been speaking. And then at the end, I will then pull out some of the things that you have spoken about just in a summary form, sort of. And that will be the video that we will put out. I will see if there's any editing that will be needed, but I don't want to do too much editing with the stuff that's happening in between, because I want it to be as raw as it best can be, so that people can get your view as clearly as possible. So that's that. We would like to thank you for your time, Zux. I will put it out sometime, like I said, in the second quarter of this year. We've done probably about 6 or 7 of them now. So what we want to do is to package them together. There's about 15 that we're looking to do, so probably about 5 that are speaking with a similar theme. So we want to drive those points home, and then we'll move on to other episodes, and then group the other 5 together, and then also the other 5 together as well. So we'll see how we'll package it, but we'll let you know, of course, when it's ready, and potentially even share some of it with you, so that you can just verify that you're still comfortable with us putting out such stuff. But we've not shared on any that the kind of stuff that would infringe on anyone's personal info or even privacy kind of level, besides the fact that you're showing us your space, of course, which we are very grateful. So thank you very much for your time. We'll keep in touch.
Okay, no, thank you, Bonga. All the best with this initiative. Hopefully it reaches out to a lot of young people. I mean, it's a very good initiative, and obviously in our times we knew very little people in terms of career paths and the different career paths, and then knowing so little, obviously, if you didn't know somebody in the street or your township or something like that, it's difficult to get this information, and you get shocked when you go to a career day or whatever in one of those universities, and you feel, yeah. So I mean, it's something that I like. It's something that deep down in my heart, it's something that I would like to say, for example, to share. I mean, I participated in those psych school visits to try and promote the psych, but I still feel like, for example, I mean, for a large majority of the population, some people feel or some people think that they cannot do or get to certain things. Because of lack of resources, or maybe lack of knowledge, or maybe lack of guidance in terms of somebody that can guide them to that. And those are all things that sometimes you think as you go in your life, you'll be able to have time and find it to go back and do all those things. And little do you know actually how much time you find to do those things. So when I got the invite initially, I was like, I'm not on Twitter, I'm not on Instagram. Now there's gonna be a video. I'm like, do I really want to do this? But then I thought, like, if you want other people to have a point of reference, you want other people to share on someone else's journey, then they better see someone or see something, so that it, like you're saying, it might motivate someone to say, okay, fine, let me try and do this. I see I see this person and that person who has walked this path. And like you say, that's one of the other things that when I was growing up in high school, when people said, yeah, if you go into university and you take this degree, it's difficult, you can't do it. Then I asked them, has anyone ever done it before? And they say, yes. I'm like, okay, that's good enough. That means it can be done. So I'll try my best. So like that type of attitude, I think it goes a ways to most young people. If you don't know anyone who has done it, but in your family or whatever, but you know of somebody far who has done it, it doesn't stop you from doing it. But yeah, it's a great initiative, and I look forward to the final output.
Cool. Thank you very much, Six. Talking about you not being on social media, it was so difficult to find a picture of you when I needed a picture sometime last year.
What picture did you get?
We found something. I'm not sure whether it's the one you use on LinkedIn or what, but I found a picture, but it was the only one, literally the only picture of you that I could find on the net.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm on WhatsApp.
We'll take that. We'll take that. Thank you very much, Six. Have a lovely day.
Sure. Thank you. Same to you.
Cool.
Cheers.